I would like to thank everybody for coming. First of all, in case there's a couple of folks that I have not yet had an opportunity to say hello to and introduce myself to, my name is Tony. I am one of the co-hosts with Mark and Keren of the 360 Vegas podcast. If you're not in the right room, it's okay. Please still buy a drink, though. We are super, super appreciative that you folks would come out and hang with us. I don't really have anything prepared, and I don't have anything prepared first because I never had anything prepared for the podcast, so why start now? But secondly, I don't have anything prepared because the thing that has gone through my mind leading up to tonight was, what would Mark want of tonight's, festivities? And I think the thing that Mark would not have wanted would for it to have been unnecessarily or unduly sad, right? I don't think that Mark would have wanted us to be here sad. I think Mark would have wanted us to be here happy, and Mark would have wanted us to be here to celebrate the thing that he created. And if you've been to, even one 360 Vegas vacation, one of the things that Mark has always said, and I love this, he would look around and he would take a step back, because unlike me, who the most dangerous place to be anywhere in the world is between me and a microphone. So, and yet you still gave me this opportunity. That wasn't who Mark was. Mark didn't want the spotlight, but Mark could still take a step back and he could look at what a Vegas vacation looked like, and he would say, man, I can't believe this is something that I created. I can't believe these folks are here today doing this thing because of this idea of what I wanted to create, just because of my love and my passion for Las Vegas. And so that's the thing that has been sticking with me most of all leading into tonight, was Mark wouldn't want us to be sad. Mark would say, we're all friends here. And as I look around and I see these faces, and I vacationed with a lot of these faces outside of the city of Las Vegas, and I know a lot of you have spent time with each other outside the city of Las Vegas. That's something that Mark created. So although we don't have Mark with us here physically, what we have with Mark is these relationships. So when I'm in Houston visiting Joey and Norma, or I'm in San Diego visiting Dr. Mike. Don't worry, the rest of my speech is at the bottom of this glass. That's what happens when you try to give shout-outs, right? Or the Pankies in St. Louis, right? Okay, we're going to be done with that part of the speech. Listen, even comedians got to try out new material, right? And it doesn't always work. You just know what does and what you don't keep. The point being, and I swear I have one, the point being is, when I look at the faces here of people that I truly consider friends, frankly, friends that I spend more time with than my own family members. That's the thing about family, right? Sometimes family is who you're born into, and a lot of times family is who you choose to be with. And I look at this group, and these are the family members that I choose to be with. So, I don't think that Mark would want us to be sad, and I'm going to do my part to make a complete jackwagon out of myself, which is exactly what I would do on the podcast every week, hopefully to a little bit of your amusement. I will be emceeing poorly this evening, all right? We do have some folks that are going to come up and speak on different topics, right? And one of them is Tim Lawson. Now, for those of you that haven't had yet the opportunity to listen to a particular podcast that Tim put out shortly after we lost Mark, it's 100% worth your time to pull it up and listen to it. It is outstanding. But it was so beautiful that Keren reached out to Tim and said, would you mind sharing with us in person some of those things that you had shared with your podcast listeners? I think it would be good, healthy, helpful for us to hear those words. So if you would, please help me welcome up Mr. Tim Lawson. Tim, come on up.
Good evening. Glad everyone can make it, especially the gentleman from San Diego. I had requested those clear teleprompters like the president has, but Michael Trigger assured me that was not in the budget. After Keren called and asked me to talk, I took a lot of walks pondering what I might say today. And I kept coming back to those same ideas. And you don't step in the same river twice, right? So while a lot of these words are going to be familiar, they may hit a little different for us tonight. They may be more important. I was at dinner with a couple of friends when Eric Rosenthal sent me the message letting me know what had happened, informing me of Mark's passing. The gentleman across the table from me, who I had just met that evening, asked me if I was close to Mark. And I actually didn't know how to answer that question. I didn't want to embellish my relationship with Mark, but I also didn't want to invalidate the feelings that I had when I heard about his passing. And, we share a similar audience. We're closely associated. I saw him a couple times a year. And we shared an intense conversation about mental health just a couple of months before his death. During that interview back in May, Mark shared his struggles and, at the time, his perseverance regarding suicide and mental health. And I directly asked Mark, at the 36-minute, 15-second mark to be exact, if he experienced suicide ideation. And he admitted that he had, and that he thought about it daily. But the conversation that followed was enormously sincere and honest, and the conversation became more positive than alarming. But when I learned about his passing, I have to admit, I felt a little betrayed. And I felt betrayed because I felt like a lifeline between friends had been abandoned. And I've heard that same feeling expressed from a lot of people in this room. Sadness, anger, betrayal, guilt, these are all things I know all of us have been dealing with over the past few months. But I feel obligated to reiterate my understanding of suicide prevention, not to reflect the situation as helpless, but to alleviate any guilt that may still exist in this room. I've had thousands of conversations about suicide and suicide prevention. The same concepts that kept coming up surrounding prevention were purpose, empathy, importance, and community. Mark's work with his podcast, his book, his writing, clear purpose. The conversations that he had when he opened up to himself and showed with others with mental health, empathy. The praise and respect to receive from his audience is evidence of importance, and this room is undeniable proof of community. Very funny. This isn't meant to imply that Mark's death was unavoidable, but instead to instill the slightest bit of comfort to those of us who still may be wondering if there was more we could have done. Unfortunately, Mark's inner battle was with himself, and one that he was profoundly aware of. It's natural to think about death and suicide by what has been taken away, but it's just as important to remember what's been left behind. Mark and I shared a very strong common understanding that sharing begets more sharing. And I know that members of Mark's audience opened up to him when he began explaining his mental health struggles, and I know how much it meant to him when they did. While Mark was unable to save himself, I'm confident his honesty, transparency, and empathy benefited the livelihood of others. So that gentleman's question of, was I close to Mark, is better answered by the connection that I have with this community that he's built. It's the people in this room that have kept me close to Mark. There are many people in this room that I met through the 360 Vegas podcast or Vegas Vacation, many of you that I only saw during that annual tradition. And it's a shame that we wait till moments like this to tell people how we feel, to share what they mean to us or how it feels when they're gone. But in the spirit of community, Mark's legacy, and the never-ending goal of suicide prevention, let's be honest with each other this weekend. Let's be deliberate with our interactions with each other. We are so lucky to know each other, and we are so very much more fortunate to know the man that brought us all together. So let's celebrate with him both in memory and how we support and love one another.
Tim, thank you, man. That was beautiful. All right, so what we're going to do, the way Keren and I have chatted about, and Josh have talked about how we think tonight should play out, this was awesome. Let's go back and let's keep having a good time. Have a drink. Have a drink. And in a few minutes, we'll get back together. I've got another person that wants to come up and chat, but until then, thanks for coming, and have another drink. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to give a quick shout out to Tim Lawson here. For those of you that don't know, before I was one of the many perks about being friends with Mark is he always wanted to try something new. If you came to Mark with a podcast idea, he'd say, "Let's give it a try and let's see if it works or not." And he and I had gotten to know one another. Actually, my buddy Jason, say hello to everybody. Hi, Jason. Jason and I got the opportunity to meet up with Mark and Keren when they still lived in Chicago, because Jason and I were doing a podcast at the time called Vice Lounge Online. And I wasn't going for that, but I'll take it. And the thing about our podcast is it was a weekly podcast where it was a 30-minute show, and for 10 minutes we would talk about a cigar that we'd smoked, and for 10 minutes we would talk about a gambling opportunity, and for 10 minutes we would talk about a cocktail we were drinking. But here's the deal about the podcast. We would record between 4 and 6 podcasts in one sitting so that we could then post them over, the next 4 to 6 weeks. So the Tony that you got on week 1 was not the same Tony that you got on week 6. And Tim Lawson aptly pointed out, he goes, "I think tonight's going to be a lot like Vice Lounge. Every time Tony comes up to introduce the next speaker, we're going to get like the next week's Tony of intoxication." And so here we are. The next person that I would like to ask to come speak to us, it's Mark's sister. Mark's sister, Brandi Ortiz, is here to share just a little bit about what it was like to actually get to be, or have to be, as some might phrase it, sisters, and a sibling of Mark. So please help me welcome Brandi Ortiz.
Sorry, I'm short. All right. Mark, you were doing so good. I was so proud of you and how happy you had been the last month or so before you passed. You said you were feeling like your old self again. Damn, do I wish you would have just picked up the phone and called me like you had the last 2 months while I was off of work. I would have sat in silence with you like we had done several times, because neither of us had anything to say, but because you weren't ready to get off the phone yet. I'm shattered that I won't be able to do that anymore. Or to tell you how much of a dork you are, which I had just done the week prior when you had called me to tell me that when you were playing basketball, you tried to stop it from hitting your car, and you scraped up your arm, and you needed advice on what you should do and how to take care of it. Should you put a Band-Aid on it, or should you let it air out? And then you were worried that if you let it air out, that it would get infected. Or when you fell off your scooter a week later and bounced your face off the sidewalk and got a black eye and wanted to know how best way to tell Keren. Should you wear some sunglasses and just say that you're too cool to wear shades? Or should you say that you got punched out by Tyson? Each time I told you that you're such a dork. I'm so mad at myself for not coming to visit you like I had always made plans to. But life is life, and it gets away from you. And the next thing you know, it's been 8 years and from when we visited you last with Keren in Memphis. Over the years, you have told me several times that you felt like you abandoned me when you graduated high school and moved a week later and never came back. I told you in return I never felt that way, but now I do. And now I can't call and bitch at my big brother about all the shit I always did. That I always called you for, but don't get me wrong, I'm fucking still gonna call and bitch at you. And
She does.
Yes. And then laugh at myself in return, because I know that's what we have done if you were still here. Damn it, Mark, this is gonna be hard. I learned from you the things that only you could understand. I leaned on you for only the things that you could understand and could talk to you about. Who will I do that with now? Yes, I have, very much. You were my first best friend. I know I was your annoying little sister, but I wanted to be like you. I wanted to dress like you. I wanted to dance like you. No, I didn't dance like you, but I did try. Run track and do long jump like you, but I fucking sucked. Yet I still did it because you did, so I could feel close to you. It was always, oh, you're Mark's little sister, and I'd smile that pride of your obnoxious loudmouth baby sister. I'm like you, and I could go on, but by far one of my most favorite memories of you, and I say favorite in quotes, is because Mom and Dad left us in the car when they went to the grocery store. I must have been like 9 or 10, so you would have been like 13 or 14. You pretended you were going to punch me because I was annoying the shit out of you, and I flinched into your fist. You accidentally punched me in the face, and my blizzard splattered all over the roof of the car. You were trying to calm me down, saying, I'm sorry, Brandi, I'm so sorry. Please don't tell Mom and Dad. Please don't tell Mom and Dad. Begging me to calm down. But anybody that knows me knows that when I cry, especially when I was little, I get the hiccups, and I kind of hyperventilate. And then when I breathe, I'll shudder, and I'll try to calm down, and then I'll gasp for breath between each word. And so it wasn't even possible to hide that from Mom and Dad for that reason alone. Then to add to it, there was a blizzard splattered all over the ceiling of the car. To the time that we thought we were so slick and stuck to the beach with a bunch of your friends, you rode your bike and I rode the pegs as the group of us sped off. You were trying to speed up, and you would stand up and move your bike left to right to pick up speed. In the meantime, every time you did, the bike tires rubbed on the insides of my calves. They ended up rubbing them raw. But I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid that if I complained, that you wouldn't take me. So we ended up running into a friend of family at the beach, and when we were there... Okay, Mark, I won't talk about that. We ended up getting busted, and I have the scars on my calves today to prove. To going to visit you once you moved to Columbus, where you let me drink with you and all your friends, even though I was only 16, but I loved every second and spending the time with you. To our couple of visits in Memphis, and you and Albert drinking on Beale Street and playing pool pong with you and the kids in your pool, and Aiden learning to swim in your pool. And by far the most memorable was Vegas Vacation 2. It is also where you tried to kill me by having us walk on Fremont in 117th degree weather, to the point where I was like, I'm not going to make it back to the D. And once we got back, I don't even remember how we got back, but I took a cool shower and literally passed out for several hours, woke up sweating profusely, pretty sure I had heat exhaustion. And that's also where you got so drunk on Fremont Street where you were doing the Humpty dance in the middle of the street. I'm glad my husband got the video to prove it.
He does.
And by far the most special was you and Keren helping Ariana and Jaden with their wedding. You helped them turn their wedding plans from stressful and excited and to being excited. And they had a beautiful, special, intimate wedding in Vegas on the high roller. But what I'm going to miss the most is messing with you every time we talked, to teasing you relentlessly and you doing it back and laughing about it. One of my favorites was when we were talking and you were like, how does it feel to have a brother that's a famous podcaster? To my response was, oh, wow, I'm excited for you. To you cracking up and saying that I'm such an ass, but that you loved me for it. Then a few years later, when you asked if I listened to it, I told you I would try. And later that day, I called you back and like, I can't listen to that shit. He was like, why? I'm like, I just want to cut in and talk shit to you. And you just laughed at me. And then when your book was released and I told you that my copy came in, you asked me what I thought of it. And I said, I didn't read that shit. I just bought it to support you. I have no interest in reading it. You laughed that amazing laugh of yours that I'm going to miss so much. I'm not really sure how to wrap this up, but I am so thankful that you told me back in 2019 that you needed to talk to me, and that you had talked to Keren and your best friend, and that you needed me to know this. You told me that you needed me to know that if you ever committed suicide, that there was absolutely nothing that Keren, your best friend, or anybody else could have said to him to stop it, and not to question ourselves. But that you just couldn't handle the demons in your head anymore. So for these last 6 weeks, for these last 6 years, anytime you called me, I'd stopped what I was doing to talk to you. And if you hadn't have told me that, I don't think I would have been okay as I have been. I still wish I would have called you on Tuesday after work or on my way to work on Wednesday, but I didn't want to bitch at you early in the morning, your time, even though I knew you would have been up. But damn, does this suck that your brain literally would not and did not let you remember how many people loved you and that would have been there for you. I want you to know that I miss you so much. And I love you, which was the last thing you said to me Monday night, and I said I love you too. And I got it tattooed with his signature, saying it.
You did so good. Thank you.
So get a drink. We'll be back in a few. All right, gang. If I can get everybody's attention for a hot moment, please. I do kind of love the fact that we've got Kleenex up here now. Hope there are Kleenex both, here and back there as well. So our the next person that we'd like to invite up to come and spend a couple of minutes with you, Josh Wygant. Now, for those of you, and I kind of referred to this earlier, I'll bring it back. One of the things that Mark was so proud of is Mark knew where his, I will use the word deficiency, not literal, but Mark knew where he had deficiencies in the podcast. And one of the areas that the podcast didn't necessarily highlight like it could are the different shows. One of the cool things about Las Vegas is Las Vegas has lots and lots of really great shows. And Josh Wygant came up to Mark at a Vegas vacation one day and said, Mark, I've got an idea. And Mark, being Mark, said, I like it. Let's give it a try. Send me something. Send me some audio, or let's get on a Zoom call together and let's record something and let's just see how it plays out. And so Josh came into the 360 Vegas world as the guy who would go see shows. And what was so valuable about Josh and what he brought to the podcast was the fact that he brought something that the rest of us didn't necessarily have the energy to get into, right? If you're sitting in a show, you're not drinking and you're not gambling. So, I mean, if you're doing it right, you arguably shouldn't be, right? So Josh said, what I really love to see shows. My wife and I are really big into coming into Vegas and seeing some shows. Would you mind if I put together some content for the podcast to talk about shows? And it worked. Like, it worked really well from you folks. Like, you folks would respond back to Mark and say, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed hearing about that. Something I wouldn't have necessarily thought about going to see, Potted Potter. All of a sudden is like, yeah, now I really want to go see this thing because Josh talked about it. And so Josh just naturally made sense to be a part of, like, he got our sense of humor. Try as you might, you can't offend the guy. Believe me, I've tried. Not intentionally, just, I'm Tony. Is my mouth running? I'm probably offending somebody. So, yeah, there you go. The one thing everybody can rally around. I hate you all. So, Josh became effectively our did you know the word is pinch hitter? It's not pitch hitter. I always thought it was pitch hitter. It's Pinch. It's a pinch hitter. I know. And he was just, Josh, if you have not yet had the opportunity to spend even 2 minutes talking to Josh, you're missing out on truly a lifelong friend. So it is my... If you haven't had a chance to spend 2 minutes with Josh, have him buy you a drink. So with that, please help me welcome Mr. Josh Weingart.
Bring on the handlebar.
Kim, are you selling mustache rides back there? Yeah. I get a cut. So I want to correct you on two things. One, the show you should be seeing should be offering drinks. And two, if you haven't seen it, it is a gamble. So. It's funny, I can speak on a recorded podcast that will be heard by 1,000 listeners, but I stand up in this room with 100 people, many of you who are listeners, and most of you who I consider to be friends as well, and frankly, I'm nervous as hell. First, let me say, whether you are a Las Vegas local or a U.S. traveler or coming from abroad, thank you all for taking the time and making the trip to be here. I look around this room and I see all these faces, and I can say from the bottom of my heart that it is good to be here. But I am not happy to be here. And I think that that is an important distinction. I would rather be doing just about anything else than commemorating Mark's life without him here. And I am definitely not happy that we are doing this today. But it is good to be here doing this. Perhaps the only thing worse than grieving is grieving alone. So it is good to be here to share in our grief and our love for Mark. I met Mark in June of 2022 at Vegas Vacation 11. Okay, that's not entirely accurate. That's when Mark met me. I met Mark about 7 years ago on California's Highway 395, driving a line between the Mojave Desert and the Eastern Sierras. Like many of you, I started out as a listener. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you in attendance first met Mark and Keren and Tony and maybe someone else as a listener of the podcast? Oh my God. Mark, Keren, and Tony became my passengers on hours of long commutes together. And though they didn't know it at the time, we drove hundreds of miles together, laughing and talking about Vegas. Mark had this incredible charisma about him. While he probably did not think of himself as a charismatic person, he always made you feel like your ideas and your interests were fascinating and cool. I remember the first time that I wrote in, and I will never forget how they read my email on the podcast. What I remember the most about that is how Mark made it sound like my Vegas trip was the most interesting Vegas trip that he had ever heard about. And I have to tell you, that's pretty dangerous feedback for an attention-starved suburbanite family man. And I was hooked. And I began writing into the podcast more and more often. And I remember when I suggested that I could contribute show reviews. Something that was, as Tony said, a big part of my Vegas experiences, but not something that was covered too much on the podcast. I was absolutely sure the idea was going to be shut down instantly. I mean, 360 Vegas was the show that Mark wanted, and he wasn't going to be open to anyone else trying to like shoehorn their content into the mix. And I don't think I've ever been happier to be wrong. Mark wanted to know what I thought. He wanted to include my perspective. And I later learned that this is who Mark is. The Andy Up segment originated from former co-host Matt, who had suggested the idea to Mark. And Mark offered some tips and suggestions, but otherwise, he let Matt make that his own. And years later, when that same segment was virtually abandoned, listener Todd Goddess came to Mark with ideas to refresh and update the content. And Mark said, go for it. And he seemed to be saying that to all of us. I fucking love Vegas, but why do you love Vegas? He was an introvert, but he wanted to have a conversation with each of us. Mark was a champion. I just learned that apparently he was a track champion. but he was also a champion of Vegas history. I remember when I first heard his first Patreon content teaser, I was enthralled. It was on Bill Bennett, by the way. When it faded out, encouraging listeners to subscribe to Patreon for the rest, I understood why dealers let you have the first one for free. I was already addicted. And he researched like a graduate student, pouring through various sources to uncover everything possible about the thing that caught his attention this month. And he would compile it all into those vintage Vegas segments that were like virtual research papers assembled for our benefit. In a recent conversation, Tony mentioned to Keren and I that he had Hamilton in his head a lot lately, and it made him think of Mark. Why do you write like you're running out of time? That was Mark, wasn't it? If you were on Discord in summer of 2024, you could just about watch him put together his book in real time. From bullet points to the first draft in 4 days. We certainly loved and appreciated Mark's passion, but to know and love Mark also meant you had to appreciate his sense of humor. That laugh. That polarizing laugh that either made you a fan of the podcast or made you turn it off. That laugh that caused so much controversy that the podcast used to have a disclaimer warning at the beginning.
If you do not like that, then don't listen. We really don't give a shit.
I admit the laugh bugged me too when I started listening. But I began to see the laugh, or hear the laugh, I guess, as an extension of that passion. When he laughed with his whole body. When he researched something he wanted to know more about, he immersed himself in it completely, wanting to know every detail. And when he loved with his whole being the way he loved Keren. I have a story about that laugh. Some of you have heard this before. The story, I mean, not the laugh. You've all heard the laugh. About a year ago, Mark and I met up just down the street to see the Tropicana implosion. There was very little information beforehand about where to view the implosion. And a lot of places people thought they were able to see it from ended up being closed off. So thankfully, Mark and we started looking for a spot a few hours before it started, so we weren't trying to figure out like our plan B or plan C at the last minute. And so eventually, we found a person who worked for the demolition company, and she told us where the safety corridor ended. We ended up at a spot right outside of Luxor, right by the statues out in front. And you've got to understand, there's still like 2 hours to go before the implosion. And the crowd is growing and growing, and we didn't want to go anywhere or move because we didn't want to lose our spots. And there's this woman right next to us, and she's watching reality TV shows very loudly on her phone. And she's chain smoking the entire time. And we didn't really mind because, we're outside and it's Las Vegas, let's face it. Then the implosion happened, and it was honestly a really cool thing to witness. And it was a really cool thing to witness a Vegas bucket list item with Mark from 360 Vegas. So after the implosion, this massive cloud of dust starts growing and moving towards us. Like, it looked like footage from Manhattan in 9/11. And the chain-smoking woman quickly grabs all her things and exclaims, "Oh, hell no, we ain't sticking around for that." And Mark and I just looked at each other, and then that loud cackle came out, which earned us both a dirty look from the chain smoker. I learned so much from Mark. Obviously, I learned about Vegas history and why Billy Wilkerson deserves all the credit and Bugsy Siegel deserves none. I also learned that by watching him work, that sometimes the magic happens when you let go and stand back and just let things happen like he would do on the show. I also learned why Keren hates rum and why maybe that late night bag of chips is inconsiderate at best.
If anyone coming tomorrow, I'll have the t-shirt on, so you'll know why.
His final lesson to all of us, while maybe unintentional on his part, is that time is a thief. It was often said on the 360 Vegas podcast that if you love something in Vegas, you should enjoy it as much as possible, because you never know when it will be gone. Mark loved the Mirage. And like the Mirage, we don't know how much time we have together, so let's enjoy it. After you leave today, try to make the best of the time you have with your loved ones and the friendships you forged, so many in this very room, because of Mark. I've said this to a few of you over the last few months. If you had told me when I became a member of the 360 Vegas family just a few years ago, or hell, as we wrapped up 360 Vegas Vacation 15, just a few short months ago, that I would be a part of closing out the podcast and speaking at Mark's celebration of life, I would have told you you were insane. In my mind, this was something that Mark was going to do forever, until it got to be a little embarrassing, frankly. He would be talking about which properties offered the best senior discounts and complaining that there weren't enough handicapped parking spaces near the entrances. There has been a lot of planning that has gone into this event, a lot of discussion about what we wanted to have, and a lot more discussion about what we did not want to have. And while funerals or memorial services or celebrations of life, whatever way in which you gather to grieve and remember, are for the living, not for the dead, there was a lot of discussion about what Mark would want and what Mark would not want. There is no priest to deliver a homily. There is no potluck with funeral potatoes. There was not a wake, unless you count episode 538. So what would Mark want? I think that Mark would want us to remember him with smiles and laughter. I think he would want to be remembered as a published author, the amateur historian who turned his passion into what is probably the most comprehensive book on Vegas history. He would want to be remembered for his podcast, which not only grew to over 500 episodes, but also informed and entertained thousands of listeners over more than 14 years. But I also think Mark would want to be remembered for this right here. This room full of people from all over who are connected by their love of both this city, but also of an informative and yet irreverent podcast. I don't think that Mark's beliefs included an afterlife. But I can tell you that he is here. He is in every picture of Las Vegas. The new pictures and the historic ones. The ones that make you say to yourself, holy shit, that's cool. He is in the Neon Museum, adding his own glow to the restored signs. He is in the dust from the Tropicana, and he is in the water spray from the Bellagio fountains that wet your face on a breezy day. The man shared a birthday with this city. You can't tell me they aren't connected. He is in the tones of a video poker machine, and he is in the calls of a crap stealer. He is in the comp drinks, and he is in the craft of cocktails. So with that in mind, I would like to ask each of you to raise your glass with me and toast. To a man I was proud to call my friend and honored to collaborate with. To a man who bravely and often publicly fought his battles until the very end. To a man who inspired us and made us laugh and who brought us all together. To Mark.
Thank you, Josh. That was beautiful. All right. So why don't you grab one more round? We've got one more speaker, and then we will kick you the hell out. So see you in a minute. All right, gang. I'm looking at the time here, and I am seeing that it is 8:30. And thank you, Joey. Thank you, Joey Gibson, for another round. What does Tony Snyder not need another round? Thank you, Joey. All right. So we have saved the best for last. If you have not had an opportunity to get to know Keren on a personal level, first of all, what the fuck are you doing here? But secondarily, Keren really was, and I don't think this is an overstatement to say, Keren was the glue that kept the podcast going, right? Like, she was the one when Tony and Mark would start to go off on these weird, random, dorky tangents about who cares what. It was Keren who would be like, hey guys, hey. She'd be like, oh, look over here, get the train back on the track. But Keren is, honestly, the sister I did not have. I have always thought about Mark and Keren as the siblings that I did not have.
Surprisingly, Tony is an only child.
In case you didn't notice, this may come as a surprise. When you heard the bickering between Tony and Mark, or Mark and Keren, or Keren and Tony, that wasn't manufactured. That was real. That was truly legitimate. Like you would expect friends to have when they're talking about something that they care so passionately about, and when they disagree, well, obviously you're wrong if you don't see things my way. And that was always the fun about doing the podcast together, was we could come at it from our own separate, perspectives. And Keren was always our foodie perspective on the podcast. And when you get someone like Mark, who is a self-proclaimed 6th grade eater, married to somebody who willingly wants to eat shit like escargot and foie gras, and caviar. Ugh, God. Caviar. Like, let's put that shit on a cracker. The fuck is that about? Sorry. I don't. The question I asked every single week. All right, now, in perfect Tony and Keren style, this might surprise you, we literally bickered right here 48 seconds ago. Show of hands, how many people can pronounce Karen's last name? Okay, look around. I see about 8 hands up. 6 of those people are liars, all right? So it is my pleasure to bring up the one and truly Keren Witowitz. Boom. You ready?
In all fairness, there are many ways to say our last name. As Brandi knows, Mark's dad was one of 9 kids, and I swear to God, every single one of them said it differently. I'm not kidding. Wojtowicz, Vodovich, Wojtowicz, Wojtowicz, all pick it. They all said it differently. Now, it is Polish, so that's why it makes no sense. But I worked with a girl who was born and raised in Poland when we were living back in Chicago, and I'm like, how the hell do you say this last name? And the technical pronunciation is Wojtowicz. Now, then she says to me, it's the most common last name in Poland. Now, does anybody know what my maiden name was? So, here I think I'm getting this new cool exotic last name, and nope, it's basically the Polish version of Smith. So there we go. I am going to be the least prepared speaker that's going to be here. And yeah, y'all are going to have to deal with it, because now I have the mic, and that's just what's going to happen. And I've had maybe a few cocktails in there. I'm going to start off with a list of people that I have to thank. First of all, I have to thank my dear friend Julie, who, if you've been watching the photo video over here, she has been collecting the photos and putting them together, and I believe our intention is we will get these posted out there publicly, maybe on YouTube. I don't know. We're still working through that, but it's just too damn good to not get out there. I then have to thank Michael Traeger, who is here, of Zorkfest fame. I called him and I'm like, I know I need to do an event. I need to do something. I need a room. And he was like, I'm on it. And so he has put this all together, made all the arrangements. I could not have done this without him. And so, Michael, thank you very much. I'm then going to ask, I'm going to thank, and this might be the last person I should thank because all the work he's put in, but Mike Movestro, who is running all of our sound and everything here. And not only for this evening, but the fact that we were able to get the last couple of podcast episodes out. It was Movestro that came over and did a little, as he's called it, forensic IT and a little bit of hacking. Which Shane is your buddy in the back. He's giving you a huge high five right now. I say it wasn't hacking because technically now it's all my stuff. I just needed help getting into it. So ethical hacking. There we go. We'll go with that. I then have to thank Tim Lawson for speaking tonight and for being here. And Tim has been, yes, huge round of applause. I'm going to echo, if you did not hear, Tim and Mark's conversation on The Better Life, it's a really good insight and window into, what Mark was dealing with and where his head was. What makes that so hard is then what happened not too far after. And when you listen to that episode, it sounded like he was in a really good place. But Tim was a good sounding board for me right after. When I asked him to do this, he immediately said yes. And I think, his words and perspective on all of it, exactly what we needed, what I love to hear. I hope it helped all of you guys as much as it helped me. So again, Tim, thank you very much. I don't have to thank Brandi, but I'm going to, just because she's no, it's one of those things. They say you can't pick your family. I did not have any sisters growing up. I had an older brother and a younger brother, and I hated my brothers. I'm kidding. They're great. But I never had a sister. And, Brandi was a little bit younger than us when I first met her. And she has told me that I was the annoying big sister that would kick her in the ass when she needed to. And she is definitely the annoying little sister that I never wanted, but I'm so glad that I have. And the stories that she shares about Mark, oh my God, that's only half of it. If you guys knew what those two went through together, it's unbelievable. thank you because honestly, we did the event in Ohio, and it was family, and so it was people that you knew, and now you're here basically at a room full of strangers that you don't know, and I think you being able to share your perspective on Mark, on who he was younger, and as a family member, and everything else was really insightful. We have to also get the photo video stream of that the family sent in, because they're all, when Mark was younger, oh my God, guys, there's some funny ones in there if you haven't seen. It's hilarious. Great stories that, I hope somebody gets to know. He had hair and a mustache. I got rid of that. He was. The picture of him on top of the tree with a buzz. Yep, no, he was. Yeah, maybe. I have to thank Josh. Josh is the quote-unquote newest member of the 360 Vegas podcast crew, but he has been such a fun addition just on the podcast side, but I can tell you from the personal side, that first weekend Josh was here in Vegas, and God bless you, Dana, his wife, for letting him come out and be there and support me, because it was needed that he was here. He's continued to be here, and just can't thank him enough. And what you said, you're an amazing writer. I had no doubt that whatever you were going to say up here was going to be awesome, and it was. So thank you very much. Love you. No, I'm getting through it. I'm going to get through it. All right, and last thank you officially is Tony. Tony said he's like a brother. We annoy the shit out of each other. But, I can tell him that, and he can tell me that, and we're good, and we move on from there. Still don't think I will ever get over the Vegas vacation where you licked my face. Not that Vegas vacation you didn't. We'll get to you later, Kimberly. No, but Josh, it's crazy to me that it's been like 10 years that you were on the podcast, which means I've known you longer than that. And you and your amazing wife are two of my very best friends and two of our very best friends. And you, of course, showed up in total style for this. We had to actually... Wait, so apparently there was this slight little bet on the side bet when Josh put out that this was a come as you are event. Leave your suits at home unless that's what you feel most comfortable in. And what I learned tonight was that Eric Rosenthal immediately knew that Tim Lawson would show up in a suit with no tie, which he did. And Tim thought, you know what? I'm going to be the best dressed person there. Tim lost that bet because Tony shows up. Oh my God. So, no, he owns that. I know. He didn't have to rent it. That's his. He is getting mileage out of that. I guess the other thank you I have to do is everybody in the room. And this is where I'm going to get choked up. You guys have no idea how much the outpouring of love and support, thoughts, random text, whatever it might be, has meant to me, and how it's helped to get me through. And for any person that I didn't get a chance to talk to personally, I know there's one over here. I don't think I've met you yet. I'm coming for you after this. I just... Oh, no, I met him. No, anyway. No, I can't tell you guys thank you for that. But what it reminds me of is this community that Mark has created. And I can't tell you how proud he was of it. How proud he was of, people that listened to the podcast that then met each other and became friends and then hung out and in some cases vacation together, but would also message each other and just stay connected. And that was the thing that he was the most proud of. So I hate to, if I'm ever going to ask for something, I feel like being the grieving widow is the time to ask for it. I will. My ask is that you guys don't give up on each other. You stay connected to the people that you've known, that you've met. This has been asked many times. I don't think another Vegas vacation is out of the realm of possibility. No, not happening. But no, cocktail events might be off the limit with that one, unless Tony starts, doing all the work himself. Yeah, okay. No, but there's something about the Vegas vacations, like getting people together and folks having the opportunity to stay connected, that I love, I will miss. And if all the people that have shown up tonight have shown me anything, there's a lot of other folks who are going to miss it too. So I don't know when we got to get through all that, but just know that Josh, I've merged your names now. Josh and Tony and I have talked about it. We've got a lot. We had to get through this week. Then we got the holidays. And then Josh is determined to get Mark's second book out, although he's yes. He is a father of 3, and so please, give him a little grace. And Mark had no other animals other than the kids, who, the dogs that we could put in a crate, and nobody would argue with that. Josh can't do that with his kids. You've done it before. Yeah. But please, any connections that you guys have made because of Mark, because of the podcast, however random they may be, please keep it up, because that is the best way to honor him and what he did and what he built. What I wanted to end with, I don't know if I can get through it, is a song lyric from Linkin Park, one of Mark's favorite bands, honestly. But, was that you? It's not me. But the lyric is, and I think it fits, when my time comes, forget the wrong that I've done, and help me leave behind some reason to be missed. And don't resent me. And when you're feeling empty, keep me in your memory and leave out all the rest. And that's what I'd ask you guys to do. Forget why he's gone, how he's gone. But remember what he left. And thank you guys.
And that was Mark telling me to calm down. That's why I got that message. Take a breath. You got this. You got it.
Get a drink. Exactly. Oh, I guess I got nothing else to say, right? Listen, we've got about 10 to 15-ish minutes left in the room, all right? I will echo Keren's comments. Pass your email to one another, or cell phone to be able to text with one another, or connect with each other on whatever social media platform of your preference. Don't let this group here tonight dwindle, and stay together and be together. I will echo Josh and Keren and Brandi and Tim when I say, and I mean this sincerely, friends, you all helped us get through the first 24. Okay, well, that's my cue, so that's all right. That was unbelievable. That was some security. You helped us get through our first 24 and 48 72 hours with your texts and your DMs and your phone calls and the way you reached out to us. And I can only speak for Josh and Tony and Keren, because I know that they've shared that with me as well. Please understand that your kind words mean more to us than anything else. And when you're worried that you are bothering us, I put bunny ears right around bothering me. If you think that, air quotes, people. What are bunny ears? If you think that you are bothering us with a text message or a phone call or a DM or however you choose to reach out to us, please know that that is not bothering us. You helped us get through a really dark, sad, horrible time because of your kind and loving words. And if there's one thing that I want to close out tonight with, it's that. This group here is probably some of the closest motherfuckers I've ever actually met in my life. And I love every single one of you. Sincerely. Sincerely. See, I just had to use the term motherfuckers, and then I got claps out of that. So, with that, all of a sudden I turn into Samuel L. Jackson. I'm like, you motherfucker. Listen, thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Michael Traeger. Thank you, Michael Movestro. One more time, a round of applause for these guys right here. Can we give a shout out to our bartenders back there and how great they've been? So I got a fun little story here, and then I swear to God, I'll let you guys go. I've got a microphone and an audience, like we're going to be here till midnight. So Traeger came up to me during one of the breaks, and he said, listen, I just want you to know that I had a conversation with our bartenders, and the bartender said, I think we're going to be good with this glassware that we've got presently. I've got like 15 of X, 15 of Y, 15 of Z, and I think we'll probably be good. And God love Michael Traeger goes, I don't think that's going to be enough. And the bartenders said, well, nah, for a group this size, that usually is about, is usually the right amount. And Traeger goes, yeah, usually. They had to order more glassware because of you guys. So with that, thank you for coming. Thank you so much for being here. We love you all. Good night.